Good morning, everyone. This is my Buddha again. So today's day 29 of this compassionate response to COVID-19, and it's either day 29 or it's 35 because I had a week off basically. So we're going to be looking at the next month. So I'm going to do another 28 days of sessions. And it just came to me actually the other day. I thought, oh well, yeah, what would be great to do would be a week on friendship, and partly I think because I need to remind myself of the importance of that, particularly at the moment, with all the isolation going on. So so we'll have a week of reflecting on what friendship is, and I'll be sharing some of my my friendships, and hopefully, I thought maybe it might be nice to maybe have some Zoom conversations and share with my friends and share them here, with you. So yeah, there's all sorts of possibilities with with media these days, isn't there? It's fantastic in that way that we can do all sorts of stuff. So I just want to try and make the most of what we can, what's possible really. I thought it'd be good actually in the second week of this month to do a week on ritual and devotion. So I was quite involved in designing rituals for the Manchester Buddhist Centre years ago after I got ordained, and then I got involved with Buddhafield, which is a small festival held in Somerset in England every year, and we would do big rituals with like hundreds of people, and I was part of the design team of doing that and presenting all of that. So I've got So look at that'd be good for a week to look at that, I think it's good to have rituals in our lives. Well, we do have rituals in our lives. It's good to make them conscious, really. And then I thought that maybe in the third week, I could look at an area that I've got quite a lot of interest in, which is Buddhism and science, or Buddhism, in a way, versus science. The issues involved in that. Because a lot of people have learnt mindfulness, and mindfulness taught these days, in a secular, in a kind of normal setting, it has to meet certain scientific criteria in order to be acceptable, to get funding and everything. So, it'd be good to look at that a little bit. What's the positive side of that, but is there a downside to it? And I did attend a Buddhism and science colloquium years ago, back in 2010, with some of the sort of top people in the world in the field, and that was really interesting to interact, on that level. I think there's still interesting stuff to explore in and around that whole area, particularly the kind of philosophy behind things. So that'd be week 3, and then week 4. I thought maybe we could look a little bit at some of the deeper teachings that go on in Buddhism. Particularly, I'm thinking particularly of kind of involving one of my friends, Sagramati, who's our top scholar in this particular movement in Triratna, and just maybe share some of his insights, and things like, well, what is emptiness, and there can be misunderstanding about all sorts of things like that. So I thought, it'd be good to go a bit deeper or something. Maybe even have some discussions among order members about those sorts of topics. So anyway, that's what's arisen for me, and so that looks like the structure for the next month. Yeah, some good news is that in this week off, I've had with some of the money that we've raised, I'd still need to raise a bit more money, but I've employed somebody to turn all the videos, all 28 videos, into proper videos with titles and everything, and loaded them onto YouTube. So there's now all 28 sessions from last month are now up there on YouTube, so anyone can now look at them. You don't have to be on Facebook or go through Facebook. So that feels like a collective achievement, among us, to have done that. So I think that having a pattern where I do 4 weeks on and 1 week off, that feels like realistic. I need to. You can't just keep. It's not. I'm not practicing what I preach if I just kill myself doing this and don't have time off. So yeah. That's it really. Preamble. So today we're going to be looking at beginning to look at friendship. So here's a picture of the Buddha, a painting. It's probably about maybe 5 or 6 foot high. That painting, that done by an order member called Amita Jyoti, and she just thought, just try and represent what the Buddha might have actually looked like. So what I'll do today is say, I think you need, for those people who are maybe coming into these videos without much knowledge of Buddhism, I think I need to say a bit about who the Buddha is, and then then start to introduce the theme of friendship and why it's so important in Buddhism, and look at maybe share a little bit about my own friendships. But before we do that, I think it's always good for us to do a little bit of body work to kind of wake our bodies up, and so meditation. What I kind of see meditation posture isn't just the position that you're sitting in, like cross-legged or on a chair or whatever. It's everything that's happening with your body that's either supporting or not supporting you to be awake and aware and able to pay attention and all sort of things. So if we've got like tiredness, or if we feel a sort of draining feeling in our body, just through having been sitting about a lot, then that's not conducive to meditation, and that is what we call a hindrance in meditation. There are different types of things that get in the way of actual meditation practice, and they're called hindrances. So some of them are physical hindrances, and some are mental hindrances, like having a dull, kind of sleepy kind of mind. So we need to wake our bodies up, So usually stimulate them, and then maybe sort of smooth the energy out as well. So we want our energy to be flowing in a nice sort of way when we're sitting in meditation. So let's all stand up and okay. So let's begin by just shaking your arms, shaking your feet. Maybe take a few deeper breaths. Maybe give your face a little bit of a wash with your hands. Being aware of your feet on the ground, how it feels to have your feet on the ground. Squeeze, give your hands a little bit of a squeeze. Okay. And then just putting your arms, your hands facing outwards, and we're just going to do some shaking. So just keep bouncing your knees up and down, and then just make a bit of noise. So the point when you're doing this is to put a whole sense of embarrassment to one side. Just imagine that you're going to be doing this for a long, long time, just to get out of your head any thoughts that, oh, when's this going to end? So yeah, our body needs things to happen slowly, need to give it time. Maybe make the bounces a bit kind of slower and deeper. Keep having your hands facing outwards as you do this and leaning slightly forward. Okay, that'll do. And just rotating your hips. So doing a big circle with your hips and just being conscious of going to the right, going to the front, going to the left, going to the back. So body and mind together in the same place. So not having the mind ahead of the body or the body ahead of the mind lagging the body, but in the same place so that we're bringing awareness to our actual body and what's happening with it. I'm just thinking of the rest of your day and how if you work harder in this session this morning, you're going to benefit much more from, you know, your mind and your body, the state that they're in. So one of the things that gets in the way of Buddhists who are trying to get anywhere, get to nirvana, get to enlightenment, is something called going through the motions. So at the point where a Buddhist practitioner is guaranteed, in a way, it's called stream entry at this point, guaranteed to attain nirvana, they don't go through the motions ever. So they realise that everything that they do is it's really important that they actually do it with wholeheartedness and thoroughness. So it's like they're not just doing it as a nominal kind of thing. While they get it out of the way, while they get onto the important stuff. So this is the important stuff. You and your body and your mind is the important stuff. And then whatever you do with all of that is done with a better body and a better mind. Okay, now just swinging your arms around side to side. Just have the movement start in your foot and then get transmitted through your hip, and then your arms are the last thing to move. And the movement is only coming because it's coming from the foot and then the hip. So you're very lazily swinging from side to side. So this twist in the body is going to help with the energy in your spine, flowing up your spine when you're meditating. So we need to have a kind of sense of things being unblocked. So the more of this sort of thing that you do, the less you need to meditate in a way. It's like when you sit on your cushion, it's almost like you just start meditating without much effort, because you've got this energy there. And you know, a big part of your experience, I mean, maybe your body is like 90% of your experience is happier. Okay. And then just swinging arms backwards and forwards. And you shake everything out. Now just drumming on your head. And just massaging your face. Stroking down your body. I imagine sort of throwing some of the tension out of the window. And then just put your hands on your stomach and just allow your breath to calm down a little bit. And then when you notice that you're breathing out, just begin to bend your knees. And then when you notice you're breathing in, straighten your knees. So just make it really obvious to yourself, just breathing out, going down, breathing in, coming up, and then going down with an out breath, and coming up on the in breath, and then down on the out breath, and coming up on the in breath. And put your hands out the front, so next time you're coming up on the in breath, you bring your hands up to your chin, turn them at the chin, then take them down slowly on the out breath, and then coming up on the in breath. Don't worry about getting it right, it's just roughly this, turning at the hips and bringing them up and then turning and then down. And then next time you keep going past your chin, into the air and out the sides. And again, up the middle, out to the sides. Salutation to the sun. And just gently shake everything out. And then take a seat. So if you've not been here before, what you need to do is just find some cushions. Well, find a chair to sit on, or preferably a reasonably firm chair, or some cushions. Meditation cushions are firm cushions that you put on the ground. Okay, so just getting used to your this new position. In a way, often the appropriate thing to do in meditation is to just wait. So just waiting for yourself to arrive here in this new position. So what we're going to do this morning is to do the grounding meditation. So this is just bringing awareness to our situation in a very kind of systematic way. So what is that situation? Well, first of all, we're a human being who's alive, who exists in time and space. So let's just be aware of, to begin with, just to be aware of time. So having a sense of time, having a sense of all the moments that you've experienced in your life, in the past. So having a sense of kind of ranging back through your past, all sorts of experiences that you've had. Being aware that hopefully you're going to have lots more experiences in the future. So being aware of the future. So sometimes, well, often in meditation we just have to give things time, so just giving yourself enough time to just arrive into an awareness of the future. And it's also the case that you exist in a particular moment in time, which is the present moment. So just allowing yourself to arrive into that present moment, this present moment. And then it's also the case that you exist in space. So you're sitting on the Earth, which is a huge, great ball of matter flying through space. And above your head is the Earth's atmosphere. And that's about 10 miles thick, which isn't very much really. And then beyond the atmosphere, things thin out, the air thins out, and we end up with like vast empty space, which is made of huge distances. And on the Earth are oceans and land masses, ice caps, forests and cities and rivers, and deserts. And you're in the particular place where you are right now. Maybe in a building, in a particular room, maybe outside. Just arriving into the place where you are right now. And then it's also the case that you have a body, and that body is a physical object in a physical world. So your body's made up of bones that support its weight, and muscles that move it about, and organs that keep it alive in various ways. So tuning into the reality of your particular body right now, just seeing where the bones are, where the muscles are, where the organs are. And rather than using an act of will to hold your body up, just reflecting that your body does know how to sit down, it doesn't need any help from your mind to do that. So just letting your body just sit there, and all you have to do is just to make sure that your spine is balanced, so that the weight is going down as vertically down into the ground or the chair as possible. So ideally, you're not your mind and emotions are not involved with your body in supporting it and holding it up. It's more the other way around. So it's like your body is supporting your mind and emotions to be free to engage with whatever you choose. So disengaging your mind and your emotions from supporting your body, and just balancing your skeleton. So if the bones of your body are aligned to take the weight of your body, then your muscles can feel confident that they can let go. So relaxation is just like unfurling a fist. Just having a sense of unfurling any tension in your body, just letting it fall down towards the ground. Beginning with the crown of your head. So taking your attention up to the crown of your head. And just imagining the flesh on the crown of your head just becoming softer, becoming looser, even lifting off the skull a little bit. Softening across your brow and down your face. Just imagining your eyes are just really round in your eye sockets, free to move. And letting go of any tension around the nose and the mouth, the upper lip, the lower lip, the chin and the jaw, the back of the throat where the tongue is attached. Just letting everything become soft. So your face doesn't need to be expressing anything to anybody. So just allowing it to quieten down. and softening in the base of your neck and around your throat area, back of your neck. Just imagine a cascade of relaxation passing down your back, as if there's some nourishing kind of waterfall, just water just flowing down your back, washing away any tension into the ground. Maybe just take a few longer, deeper breaths, and just imagine that that breath is passing through any areas of tension, loosening that tension as you breathe in, as you breathe out. On the out breath, just breathing out any injury, any stale energy, unwanted feelings, unhelpful emotions. Having a sense of the whole of your upper torso, and just enjoying a quietness descending over the upper part of your body as you just let everything calm down. Nothing needs to be there on alert. And tuning in with your heart area and how you're feeling. So having a sense of acceptance of yourself for what you are right now. Not judging anything, but accepting just you right now, today, this moment. And taking your attention down to your abdomen, and just watching the gentle rising and falling of your breath, of your abdomen. Just enjoying the round feeling of your abdomen. And the spaciousness down there. Down in your belly. And being aware of the the bones of your pelvis. It makes a kind of bowl shape. Give me a sense of relaxing down there, the lower part of your body. Just imagine space opening up between all the joints. So that the bones of your pelvis kind of spread out a little bit more onto the whatever you're sitting on. And then there's a lengthening in the muscles of your thighs. Just imagine at your knees there's a couple of arrows pointing away from your hips. And imagine on the out breath that the knees just move in the direction of those arrows. The thighs are becoming longer. And softening in the calves and in your shins, your lower legs, your ankles and your feet. Just giving everything to the ground to be held. And finally, just resting your attention on your breath for a few minutes. So in your own time, just bringing that meditation to a close. Maybe have a little stretch or something. So, on to the this morning's theme, friendship. It's hard, this media. It's hard to be able to tell what's happening out there. How are you all? Are you ready to move on to the next bit or not? Yeah, anyway. Maybe we'll wait a bit longer. Okay, let's move on. So I'm going to now just talk a little bit about the Buddha. So yeah, it's always good to remember the story, really. So basically, what the story of the Buddha is something like this. About 2,500 years ago, I think in India. So this is in India. So at the time, I think there's been a shift in culture, really. I think people have started to create cities and moved out of the countryside a bit more, and so that shift led to new ways of living, and in a way it was a bit of a melting pot in those days. So people started to get interested in religion, and it was part of something called the Axial Age. So in the Axial Age was about 500 BC, something like that. And at that time, you had all these different religious figures arising around the world. The Jewish prophets and the Buddha, Mahavira, who's the leader of the Jains, Socrates and Plato in Greece. So it's a bit like, worldwide there was something happening. And in India, people would become what are called wandering mendicants. So they would wander about. They would basically live on alms, and they would go live in the jungle, and they would be involved in intense kind of debate about the nature of things, the nature of reality, and so that idea that you get of guy lying on a bed of nails. So that's asceticism. It's like one of the things that happened that people used to do in those days was to they thought that somehow the solution was to if they just tried to torture the body so that they let go of attachment to physical pleasures. They just were able to cope with any difficulty like that. That would somehow be the solution. So at the time, there was a young man called Siddhartha Gautama, and his father was like a local chieftain. But often, in legend, you get things. Oh, he was the king or something. But basically, he was a chieftain, and Gautama was brought up in a relatively comfortable way. But what happened was he just had this what we call the four sights. He just realised that actually life just whatever you did, whatever pleasures you could get out of life, or success and everything, all of that was just subject to old age, sickness, and death. So no matter how successful you would always die. You may get sick and you may get old. You might die young. So, but those things were always there in the background. So he just decided that he needed to become one of these wandering mendicants and to try and sort of seek out the answer to this problem of old age, sickness, and death. And yeah, and he was very smart, intelligent guy, and he learnt meditation from these two masters, and I think they were, in a way, they were kind of probably Hindu teachers. But he took it as far as he took their meditation as far as it would go, and he passed their achievement, but still it didn't give him the answer. So he left them, and then he became one of these mendicants doing all the kind of self torture. So he would just starve himself, just live on 1 grain of rice a day and things like that, and practice meditating out in the midday sun, with surrounded by fires and these sorts of practices. And he did this for 6 years, and he became the foremost of these ascetics. And in a way, in the end, he got so weak that he almost drowned by falling, face down in the river. And he just realised that at a certain point that this wasn't really this wasn't getting him anywhere. So he gave it up, and he had 5 companions, and they were just disgusted, and they thought, he's just gone soft, and he's but yeah, he just as I said, he was intelligent, and he thought, oh, this isn't getting me anywhere. So what he did was he was left on his own, because nobody really, he tried everything that was on offer, but so in the end, what he did was to look into his own experience, and to sort of see, well, how do things work? How does happiness come about? And the series I did on the Buddha's teaching on mindfulness, in a way, outlines what he came up with. What he discovered was that some things are outside of our control, like old age, sickness and death are outside of our control, so we need to accept those. But there is a lot we can do within life to to bring about happiness. And what he came up with was largely orientated around loving kindness, so kindness towards himself, kindness towards others, awareness, so mindfulness of how things are, so that he's in line with what would bring about happiness for himself and for others. But also, mindfulness of things that, like just reality, things that couldn't be changed, like the impermanent nature of everything, and the fact that suffering is kind of embedded, is part of the deal, really, that we all have. It's part of life. So he really took this really deeply into meditation, that these ideas, and he transformed himself to become a Buddha, which just means one who is awake. So he overcame the problem of old age, sickness, and death in this way. So he would then be unfazed by anything, really, so his own death, but he would care about what happened to himself and to others. It wouldn't be a kind of cold indifference there. There'd be a humanity there, but also an acceptance of how things are. That he wouldn't be railing against anything that might happen. And I often think of the Dalai Lama. How he kind of embodies that sort of positivity, where he's got this can-do attitude. Yeah, let's make something out of life for everybody. But also accepting that we're human, and we have our limitations, and some things are outside of our control. So yeah. So that's a little bit of an introduction to the Buddha for those of you who don't really know much about the Buddha. So what happened after the Buddha gained enlightenment, age about 35? He lived till he was 80, and he taught others. So he taught the five ascetics, the ones who sort of dismissed him because they thought he's gone soft. So he went back to see them, and at first they wanted to just shun him, but there's something. If you got somebody who's enlightened coming towards you, there's probably going to be something about them that's a bit remarkable, that's probably what happened. They just saw, blimey, he looks completely different to how, so they just were drawn towards him, and he taught them what he'd learned, and then they also became enlightened. And then that just carried on. So he carried on teaching. People would come to him, and he'd give them a teaching, and they would do what's called go for refuge. They would put their faith in his teachings, try and practice them, and then they would usually get somewhere with that. So if when I think when we think of Buddhism in the East, particularly like Southeast Asia or something like that, what we see is monks in orange robes with begging bowls, and my teacher, who is called Sangharakshita, who died not so long ago. He was an Englishman out in India. It was actually out in India in the Second World War, and then at the end of the war, he just decided he was going to try and become a Buddhist. So he wandered about. He found people to wander about with, and to try and find teachers. He found a companion to walk around India looking for teachings and teachers and things. And he did it. But he became a monk in the end. He became a Theravada monk, and he lived in the foothills of the Himalayas from the late 1940s through to mid 60s or something like that. And he set up a little kind of Buddhist vihara, or like a little kind of monastery thing, and taught. And he was very involved in something called the Mahabodhi Journal, which was like a Buddhist, like Buddhism in those days. It kind of like died out a bit in India, really. So it was kind of hard to find people to ordain him or practice with or whatever. Anyway, he became a monk, and he practiced. But he met lots of Tibetans who were coming out of Tibet, and including the Dalai Lama. And those Tibetans, they transmitted something to him which was kind of missing a little bit in the Theravada Buddhism that he was ordained in, which was the more emotional, colourful side of Buddhism. All the figures, archetypal figures that represent things like compassion and wisdom and all that. So the Tibetans had these meditation practices which were all about trying to emulate these like figures, to become really compassionate, to become really wise. So Sangharakshita took up these practices. He also took up something called Bodhisattva ordination, which is like a Mahayana ordination, which is about altruism, and then he ended up coming back to the West and started teaching in London in the mid '60s, and he basically started a Buddhist movement called the Friends of the Western Buddhist Order, and then that's grown into an order called the Western Buddhist Order. So that order now has about 2,500 people in it, and I'm a member of that order. And so one of Sangharakshita's great strengths has always been to see where the real nub of Buddhism is and what's the important things to be talking about and to be trying to encourage people to practice and things. So one thing he saw that was really important was, and maybe a little bit kind of missing in some parts of Buddhism around the world, was an emphasis on friendship. And I think particularly he saw it was important among Westerners that who were often so self-obsessed and self-orientated and thinking about my spiritual practice, and a little bit wanting to be in some sort of hierarchical relationship with a guru, and to be receiving as a way of feeling better about themselves because they're in contact with this sort of spiritual person. But what he saw was like the important thing is just being ordinary, like having ordinary friends and having ordinary, being a human being, as much as trying to be somebody. So he really emphasised something called spiritual friendship, or Kalyana Mitrata in the ancient Indian. It just means beautiful friendship. So I talked about this before when I was talking in the last series when I was talking about the Meghiya Sutta and how the first thing that you needed to do the Buddha said the first thing you need to do if you're going to get anywhere with your mental states is to hang around people who have got something that you think you want to emulate, So these are spiritual friends. So when I first came across Buddhism, I learnt transcendental meditation. I went to Manchester University in 1973 and did physics. And at the time, it was just past the hippie era, really. It was like post-hippie era. Everything was very politicised. So, I think about 90% of students were like left-wing, and religion was in the air. The Maharishi had been taught the Beatles transcendental meditation. And so I got to university in 1973 and there was all this stuff on offer. So one of the things on offer was transcendental meditation. So I learnt it not that far from where I'm living now. It was you did a little course and then you had this mantra that you recited in your head and let it become more and more subtle and things. So I kind of did that maybe for about 6 months, but it wasn't like there was a real community of people there around that. I went to see the Maharishi at the Albert Hall, but it kind of faded. But the interest in meditation was still there, and I really loved that TV series Kung Fu. I think that used to give me a sense that there was somewhere to go with all of this. But I didn't think that you could really do. You couldn't really practice in England, so that was my view. So I gave up on it. I didn't know that there were people in England who were in the movement I'm now a part of doing things. So I moved to London in 1977 and kind of enjoyed seeing some of the punk rock bands, all that sort of thing happening. That was fun, and then had a bit of a bleak period in the 80s. Not quite sure what I was going to do with my life because I couldn't see anything really that was that obvious that was interesting for me to do, and didn't really want to be a physicist. So I was just looking for some sort of social life in London in the late 80s, and in 1988 I came across West London Buddhist Centre, which is just off Portobello Road in Notting Hill, and And I walked into this open day, and I learned 2 little meditations. Well, I learned the mindfulness breathing and the metta bhavana meditations, loving kindness meditation, and had a 20-minute massage, and everyone was just really friendly, and also kind of like not the opposite of proselytizing. So as I was leaving, this guy Vajradeepa, I said, "Oh, that was great. I'm going to Canada for a month, but when I come back, I'd like to come back, you know." And he went, "Well, if you want to, you can." And that was really attractive because it was not pushing anything on me at all. So I came back, and then I just became more and more involved in West London Buddhist Centre, and I developed friendships. So Paramananda. So this is Paramananda's main book on meditation that came out in the mid-90s. He became the chairman of the Buddhist Centre. Just after I got involved. So I used to help him with things like posters for the Buddhist Centre. It's a very small, intimate Buddhist centre, just in a basement and a ground floor shrine room and bookshop and things. And it was really nice because it was very intimate. Lots of artist types, being Notting Hill, poets, writers, so loads of Buddhist authors, people in the tree rattle movement with meditation teachers. There's lots of them there. So I feel part of a lineage. I sometimes think of myself as a expatriate West Londoner living in Manchester, because I identify so much with that ethos, really. And here's another one. This is Jinanda. So Jinanda died a couple of years ago, and so Paramananda and Jinanda were like the sort of dynamic duo. Paramananda's kind of really earthy, kind of. And Jinanda's like Hugh Grant, and he used to enjoy riding his bike into like rough areas, looking like Hugh Grant, with a cravat on, well, not a cravat, like a sort of pink scarf around him. So it's like the thing that was so attractive to me about the Buddhist Centre was the people. I thought, wow, these are real people. They've really worked on themselves. They've become rounded human beings. All different in their own ways, but all unique, but like full of qualities. And so in Buddhism, there's a teaching called the 4 Sangravastus. So the 4 Sangravastus are the ways in which as another, my friend has just turned up, Prasadu. Hi. I'll feature you later in the week. The Sangravastus are called the way that a Buddhist community is brought together, and so one of those they're called the means of unification. So one of them is exemplification. So this is what's most attractive to us, that we see something being exemplified. It's not like the person isn't just talking about something and not doing it. They're doing it. Maybe they're doing it before they're talking about it. Maybe they're showing, not telling. So the Buddha would have attracted people through exemplification, and when he often came across. Well, he was in this involved in this kind of melting pot of different religious views and practitioners and all sorts, and he would come across people, and often it would be what he exemplified would be the thing that would convince those people. You know, he would just talk very calmly about the way things were, but he was very clear, and people just kind of were attracted by that. So so I've talked a bit about friendship, and what's going to be the theme for this week, and the title of today's talk is the Buddha and Ananda. So I've not said anything about Ananda yet. So basically, I've showed the picture. So basically, the Buddha's had a cousin. Well, he had, before he became the Buddha, his cousin, Siddhartha's cousin was Ananda. So Ananda joined the Buddha, became a monk, and he became his companion that was with him, who was with him pretty much all the time, you know. And he had a bit of a photographic memory, so he could just remember everything that the Buddha said. And then, so at the end of the Buddha's life, after the Buddha died, Ananda was sort of asked to kind of like, you know, repeat everything that the Buddha said. So it was, and it was an oral tradition, so it just passed on through word of mouth. And in a way, he was the thing about Ananda was that he was so loyal to the Buddha, but maybe he was so loyal that he just thought, oh, just being around the Buddha is enough, or serving the Buddha. So when it came to, whereas the other monks, they would kind of get on with trying to become enlightened. It's almost like Ananda thought, oh, just being around the Buddha is enough, you know. But at the end of when the Buddha died, which is called his parinirvana, you know, Ananda was was it just before the Buddha? You know, Ananda was like weeping at the thought that maybe it was just before he died, at the thought of him dying, and the Buddha just said, well, you know, Ananda, what have I taught you? You know, all things are impermanent. You know, I'm too impermanent. So, you know, just go away and try and practice. And so he did. In the end, he did go away, and he applied the teachings to himself, and he did become enlightened. But one of the things that he said was that at the end, you know, before the Buddha died, he was just like he said he who was so kind, you know. So the main thing that Ananda appreciated about the Buddha was just was his kindness, and you know, that's how that showed up at one time when there was a monk who was suffering from dysentery, and it, you know, the Buddha discovered him, and I thought, well, what's happening here? He's not being looked after by the other monks. So the Buddha cleaned him up himself. You know, he didn't get one of his monks to do it. He did it himself, and he said, I don't want this to happen again. You know, for people to not be looked after. You know, we have to look after each other. You know, we don't have anybody else. You know, we are our family. This is your family. So there's a sense in Buddhism of like that we're here in life, and we're looking after each other. In the human race is looking after the rest of the human race, and that's what needs to happen. So just ordinary friendship is so important in that. It's like just turning up for people and just being there and listening and giving our presence to, you know, and not, you know, just knowing that that's enough, you know. And yes, I think my friend Dan, I'll mention, when I'm on the phone with him, I just sort of feel like he's just there. He's just there for me, and he's just there, in a way, as long as I need him, you know. or my friend Dharma Bandhu. It's like sometimes I'm on the phone with Dharma Bandhu for like an hour and a half, and we kind of get to a certain point, and the conversation dies down a little bit, and then it picks up again, and it goes off on something else. And in the end, it's like I feel really satisfied by the time we've finished talking, because he's been there so long for me that I've just relaxed, because I felt, I'm not on my own in life. There's somebody that's here with me, and yeah. So yeah, and it's an experience. It's not theoretical. It's something that actually happens. So I think there are there are some themes that we can pick up this week. Looking at friendships, I'll be sort of pulling in some of those themes, and So maybe, like, in terms of today, what we might what I might think of doing is to just reflect a bit more on my friendships, and maybe kind of put some pictures of people around the flat, and I think in terms of, like, because sometimes when we're feeling a bit isolated, it's like we can be focusing a lot on what we haven't got, like, oh, where are my friends at the moment, and all that. But I think that just having a sense but it's like that's the glass half empty, so we need to focus on the glass half full. So, like, having a sense of just connecting with our friends in our imagination, and really kind of connecting with what it is that we have appreciated about them, and what they've actually given to us. And oops, hang on. Sorry, but that's an appointment I forgot I've had with a friend, actually. So just focusing on what we've actually received from our friends, and having a sense of gratitude about that and appreciation, and then maybe finding a way of expressing that to them. So it's like friendship is something that we build through, we cultivate, just like we cultivate kindness through looking at the conditions that bring that about, looking at our views about people and about ourselves and others. So friendship isn't something that we consume; it's something that we, that we create. So yeah. So I'll just leave us on that thought, and see you tomorrow. Okay, bye.